guys, welcome to the first part of my series of tutorials over Traktor Scratch Pro and Traktor Pro 2. First things first, we're going to just go over the basic layout of Traktor. For anybody who have just recently purchased Traktor or just making the conversion, this tutorial is definitely going to help just kind of understand the whole layout and structure of Traktor as a program. Obviously, we're going to go more in depth into all these features. This is kind of more of an overview just to be able to get you started once you turn on your Traktor system. So with that being said, let's go. So this is the entire layout of Traktor. Okay, the whole layout of Traktor here, you're going to have your deck A, your deck B, and then you got all your tracks and stuff down here. These guys in the middle, these are your playlists, or in most people's are used to crates as well. Traktor uses actual playlist structure to keep everything organized and load fast. So that's where these guys these guys hang out. So let's just go ahead and do this. We'll start from the top left and just kind of work our way across, so that way you have a better understanding of what everything is and what it does. And then we'll go from there. So this is Traktor Scratch Pro. This is the version of Traktor that I use. I also got my time control vinyl and my turntables at home, which I'll use in different situations. Just kind of depends on what mood I'm in. Cruise over the top here. We've got our control button. This thing will light up when you're using any type of MIDI control or if you're using your control vinyl. Your audio to be blue if you have an audio interface hooked up. You got your load. This is your CPU load. Okay, so this is how much is happening on your processor when you're using it. You have your clock. Yes, it is 2:10 a.m. I don't ever sleep. You got your main. This is your main output. This is the VU meter for when you're playing a song. It'll tell you about how loud you're getting on your output. You have your battery level. You have your record. This is to show you if you have any active recording sessions going on. This is your whole layout choice. You click that. You'll have your default layouts. One will be like browse. One will be I think essentials, and then advanced. You can actually create and name your own. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then this is your quick browse button, which allows you to see all of the tracks a lot better, and it shrinks up your decks up at the top. Pretty good feature for people who have smaller laptops with smaller screens. This is your settings menu, which will open up just Traktor's in-depth preferences and settings. This is your auto mix here. This guy here honestly is good for about as good as mixing as a jukebox is. So if you don't mind just having jukebox style mixing at the beginning of the night, then go ahead and click that button. This is your full screen button. That just pulls you up into full screen, obviously. Alright, now we're going to come down here. These are effects. There's quite a bit of effects to choose from within inside of Traktor. We're obviously going to get into that a little bit later when we get into our advanced effects tutorial. This is also where your record is located. You click the little tape over here in the corner. You got your record button, your broadcast button, and then also you got your input gain here. So that way when you do your recordings, they're not completely brick walled the entire time. You can actually click the cut button here if you're recording, and then all of a sudden you jump into a different genre, or you just want to instantly start recording a different recording. You can hit the cut there, and it'll just split it instantaneously, and then continue with the recording after that. We'll go back to effects. This is your main output. Your main output internally is completely separate from anything externally. So rule of thumb on this guy is just make sure that it's a minus below a 0. Mine's at minus 1.8. Normally mine's set at minus 2.5 is typically where mine chills at. That right there, it just make sure that you're not going to be sending too much signal to a house system. Last thing you want to do is blow up the house system. I'm just going to guess you're probably not going to get another gig if that's what you do. So just be safe. Drop this down. Here's your snap button, your quantize button, which we'll get into later. This is actually your loop recorder. It's kind of like Traktor's hidden fifth deck. You could do quite a bit of cool remixing stuff with this. Again, we'll get into that later. And everything's the same on the other side, except one thing here. We've got this metronome. This is actually where your master and auto tracks are, where your BPMs are set. You can actually sync Traktor with multiple devices or multiple software programs. So let's say, for example, you got somebody that plays off of Ableton. You can actually sync between Ableton and Traktor, or even if you want to run Ableton at another instance in a window, you can do that as well. It'll sync across the machine. It'll sync across the synthesizers that have MIDI inputs. So a lot of very interesting features that Traktor offers. These are your track decks, left and right, obviously. Then up here, this is all your details. Okay, now all of these details are editable, and they're all editable from within the System Preferences menu, which we'll get into a little bit later. Might be in this part, might be in the next part, not quite sure. And then we have down here, this is, you might not initially see this setup when you first turn it on. If you don't, you can actually just double click right here where the name of the track is. Okay, well, obviously not that one. You can actually, you're probably looking at this view when you initially turned it on. Okay, that's not very helpful because there's a lot of things that is nice to have down here in this empty space that are very helpful for you in your mixing. So this right here, this is called our advanced view. It's actually got the advanced drop down menu here, which we'll get into a little bit later. But what I like about this view is you can see the track, it's big enough, you can see the names, you can see all your details. You can also set your cue points and see your cue points. You can also set loops. So you got your immediately set like a 4-bar loop, or 2, or 1, half, quarter, 8, 16, 30 seconds. Of course, most people would think that a 1/32 loop is not a very usable loop other than doing a build. I will definitely show you later on how a 1/32 loop can actually be an instrument. When combining that with effects, you can achieve pretty much anything. With Traktor, your creative ability is honestly limitless. It just depends on how you use it and if you honestly utilize the Traktor software for what it can do. So always keep that in mind when you're playing inside of Traktor. Of course, you got your cue, you got your cue play, and then your play button. And continuing down, this is our preview player. Works really well if you're using a controller. If you're using a controller, you can actually preview the actual tracks outside of a different headphone port. So you can be using all 4 decks simultaneously, and then you can actually go in, preview a track, and it'll come over here and you hit the little play button, and then you'll see the waveforms and you can hear the track and scroll through it real fast. So that's really cool. These guys here, I already told you, these guys are our playlists, same as crates. And then of course you got your browser layout. This is where all your tracks and stuff are located. I've got mine set up to have my locks here, keys and actual musical terms. These are your play counts, BPMs, ratings, titles, artist, time. I mean, there's quite a bit of ways that you can organize your music library. These are all of the different things that you can organize your music library. We're obviously going to get into that a little bit more in the next part of this tutorial. It's going to be more in-depth on organizing and creating your libraries inside of Traktor. So for just the time being, that's the typical layout. Now, if it's your first time opening Traktor and you have a lot of tracks and songs that are already inside of iTunes, the trick for you is to come over here into this. This is your playlist track organizer, pretty much is your browser. You come down here and just double click on iTunes, and then it'll open up your iTunes library, so that way you can just play off those playlists. As you can see, as I'm clicking through here, I mean, it's immediate. There's no loading time, there's nothing. That's the joy of having the playlist, because the playlist, what it does is it creates pretty much a text file that Traktor as a program can just reference. And then it doesn't go to load the actual track until you go to load the track. You'll notice if I do like browse, for example, through the Explorer, okay, see how long it took to load that? Now, I mean, watch how long it takes to do this. Let's do, let's load up my performance folder if I can find it. There it is. Alright, so I'm going to hit my performance folder. It's probably got the most music in it. Watch what happens. It's loading, it's loading. You see all this down at the bottom? I mean, it's still loading. Like, all these tracks haven't immediately loaded yet. It's giving me warnings. It's giving me a bunch of other things. But still, none of these other tracks have loaded. Whereas, if I come up here and just click my performance playlist, it doesn't have to. All this information that's built into the track is saved inside the playlist as a text file that can be referenced from Traktor. So that's definitely a cool plus. Of course, we've got your pitch faders here. I mean, those make perfect sense. These here are your nudge. So your nudge faster, nudge slower. This is a phase meter, which we'll get into later. This is how you set your master or your sync tracks. And okay, yeah, down at the bottom of the layout here, you actually can see how many songs you got. Like, my performance playlist currently consists of 387 songs, 1.5 days. It's 5 gigs worth of music, which is awesome. And then, let's see, last but not least, let's say if you're mixing internally, you want to be able to see the mixer and everything here in this middle view. You can actually go into your settings menu up here with the gear there. And from your settings menu, there we go, I moved it down here so that we do it. From your settings menu, what you do is you want to click on mixer on the left hand side, and then you just turn on what you want. Like, there's the EQ and volume faders. I can turn on my filter and my cue, so that way I can individually cue the tracks through the headphones. You can also turn on the crossfader there if you want to be able to see that as well. So that's how you change your settings on that there. And then, last but not least, which is the waveforms here. You'll notice this nice colorful waveforms. You can actually go into your decks layout. Okay, and inside your decks layout, you can see, track deck, track deck, track deck. That's what we've got set up over here. So those are track decks. You can actually change them to, say, for example, we're not going to do that one because that's the one we have that track loaded in. So the left track, I can make it a remix deck. There you go. You can also make it a live input. Remix deck's usually where mine's sitting at. My main default view is remix decks on top, track decks on bottom. Helps out a lot when you're doing live remixes. Tempo faders, if you want your faders on or off, you just click those buttons. And then platter scope, I'll show you a little thing there inside my different view. You can actually do your calibration and everything for Traktor Scratch from within the actual track deck without having to go into any type of preferences or settings. And then miscellaneous down here, okay, this is the color of our spectrums. Right now we got the spectrum color. You can actually go into X-ray, make it black and white, which the way I figured this black and white is here is it works really well if you have to play outside in the sun, which summer's coming up, so there's going to be times that you will, I'm sure. You can actually go in and invert the screen from your system preferences, which would then in turn make your waveforms be black. A lot easier to see if you got sun glaring down on your screen. You can change this into infrared. This is kind of the old Traktor Pro waveforms, except they're HD waveforms. You can actually see where the bass hits are compared to the snare hits. And then last but not least, we got our ultraviolet. Everything's blue. Kind of a cool little layout. In all honesty, in my personal opinion, the spectrum is going to be your best feature because with spectrum you can actually see the bass hit, see the mid hit, see the snare hit, see the hi-hats. You can physically see your music as you're playing it as well and hearing it at the same time. Kind of captures the senses, I guess. Alright guys, so that's all I've got for this specific tutorial. Again, this was just a basic overview of Traktor Pro, Traktor Scratch Pro. We're going to continue this with the next tutorial on importing your music and prepping your library. And also we'll go into a little bit more depth on the customization settings and how to change them and what's good setting layout and what's not. But then again, it all comes down to preference anyway. So I hope you guys enjoyed the basic overview of the Traktor Pro tutorial. Again, my name is Daven Treague, and please subscribe.